Commander Jake Mitchell walked slowly through the metal corridors of Starbase Alpha. His boots made soft sounds on the cold floor as he moved toward Docking Bay 7. He had received his new assignment 3 hours ago, and he still could not believe what he had read on the datapad. The bay doors opened with a loud hiss, and Jake stopped dead in his tracks. In front of him sat what the Federation called a starship, but it looked more like a floating piece of junk. The USS Defiant was supposed to be his new command, but the ship looked like it had been through a war and lost badly. Paint peeled from the hull in long strips. Burn marks covered the sides where weapons had hit the metal. Several sections had been patched with different colored plates that did not match the rest of the ship. One of the engine pods had a crack running down its entire length, held together with what looked like industrial tape. Lieutenant Lisa Brooks appeared beside him, her face showing the same shock he felt. She was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes that had always been full of hope about her future in the fleet. Now those eyes looked confused and disappointed. "Sir, are you sure this is our ship?" she asked quietly. Jake looked at his datapad again, hoping the words would somehow change. It did not. USS Defiant, registry number NCC 2847, Hercules class. Cargo vessel. That's us. Lisa walked closer to the ship and ran her hand along the hull. Her fingers came away covered in rust. "I studied these ships at the academy. They stopped making them 30 years ago because they were too slow and too weak for modern space travel." "I know," Jake said. He had done his research, too. The Hercules-class ships had been built by the Zenthari Corporation back when Faster Than Light travel was still new and dangerous. They were designed to carry cargo between planets, nothing more. They had basic engines, simple weapons, and shields that could barely stop a meteor. Other crew members began arriving at the docking bay. Jake watched their faces as they saw their new home for the first time. Chief Engineer Pete Lawson, a man in his 50s with graying hair and oil-stained hands, whistled low and shook his head. Communications Officer Amy Rodriguez dropped her bags and stared with her mouth open. "Well," said Dr. Ben Carter, the ship's medical officer, "I've seen worse." He paused and thought about it. "Actually, no, I have not seen worse." Security Chief Maria Santos walked around the ship, studying it like she was planning to defend it from attack. Her dark eyes missed nothing as she noted every weak point and damaged section. "The hull is solid," she said finally. "Old, but solid. We can work with this." Jake felt a small spark of hope. If Santos thought they could work with it, maybe things were not completely hopeless. She had served on border patrol ships for 10 years and knew more about keeping old vessels running than anyone else in the fleet. The rest of the crew gathered around as Admiral Scott Turner arrived with their official orders. Turner was a tall man with silver hair and a uniform that had never seen real combat. He looked at the humans like they were children who needed to be told simple rules. "Your mission is patrol duty in the outer rim sectors," Turner said, reading from his own datapad. "Pirates have been attacking cargo ships in that area, but intelligence says they are using fast attack vessels with modern weapons, nothing your ship can handle, so your job is to observe and report. Do not engage unless you have no other choice." Lieutenant Danny Foster, the youngest member of the crew at only 22, raised his hand. "Sir, what if we encounter pirates? Should we call for backup?" Turner almost smiled. "Son, the nearest Federation patrol is 3 days away at maximum speed. If you run into real trouble, your best option is to run. That ship might be tough enough to take a few hits while you escape to hyperspace." Jake felt anger building in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "Admiral, my crew and I are trained officers. We did not join the fleet to run from fights." "Commander Mitchell," Turner said, his voice becoming cold. "You and your crew are here because the Federation believes in giving everyone a chance to serve. But let's be honest about what that means. Humans are the newest members of our alliance. You have been in space for less than 50 years, while some of our other species have been traveling the stars for thousands of years." The Admiral walked closer to Jake, making sure every human could hear his words. "The Xanthari gave us these old ships because they had no other use for them. The Council gave them to human crews because, frankly, no one else wants to fly them. This is your chance to prove that humans can handle basic patrol duties without causing problems." Amy Rodriguez stepped forward, her face red with anger. "Sir, we graduated from the same academy as everyone else. We passed the same tests and took the same oath. Why should we be treated differently?" Turner looked at her like she had asked a stupid question. "Because, Lieutenant, your species has never faced real space combat. You have never dealt with alien pirates or hostile governments. The other species in the Federation have centuries of experience that you simply do not have." He gestured toward the Defiant. "This assignment will teach you the basics of space patrol. Follow your orders, stay out of trouble, and maybe someday you will earn assignment to a real warship." With that, Turner handed Jake the command codes and walked away, leaving the human crew standing beside their new ship. The silence stretched for long moments as everyone stared at the damaged vessel. Finally, Pete Lawson spit on the deck and walked toward the boarding ramp. "Well," he said, "I have seen worse engines than this. Give me a week, and I will have her running better than she has in years." Maria Santos nodded and followed him. "The weapons may be old, but they still work. I will need to check the targeting systems and see what kind of ammunition we have." One by one, the crew began moving toward their new home. Jake watched them go and felt something he had not expected. These men and women had been given the worst ship in the fleet and told they were not good enough for real missions. But instead of complaining or giving up, they were already making plans to prove everyone wrong. Lisa Brooks was the last to move toward the ship. She stopped beside Jake and looked up at the damaged hull. "Sir," she said quietly, "I know this is not what any of us wanted, but maybe it is exactly what we need." Jake looked at her with surprise. "What do you mean?" She smiled for the first time since seeing the ship. "Everyone expects us to fail. They think humans are too weak and too new to be real space officers. But maybe that gives us an advantage they do not understand." "How?" "Because," Lisa said, walking toward the boarding ramp, "when no one expects you to succeed, you have nothing to lose by trying impossible things." Jake followed his crew onto the USS Defiant, and for the first time since receiving his orders, he began to smile. The Federation had given them a broken ship and an impossible mission. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. 3 weeks had passed since the USS Defiant left Starbase Alpha, and the ship looked completely different. Jake Mitchell walked through the corridors and barely recognized the vessel he had first seen in the docking bay. The walls gleamed with fresh paint, the lights worked properly, and the air no longer smelled like old metal and broken dreams. Pete Lawson had worked miracles in the engine room. The old fusion reactor now hummed with steady power instead of the sick wheeze it had made when they first came aboard. He had rebuilt half the system using spare parts from the cargo hold and his own clever ideas about how energy should flow through the ship. "Captain," Amy Rodriguez called from her station on the bridge, "I am picking up a distress signal from the cargo freighter New Boston. They say they are under attack by pirates about 2 hours away at our current speed." Jake looked at the main screen where a star map showed their location in the outer rim. The New Boston was a civilian ship carrying medical supplies to a colony world. If pirates captured it, people would die from diseases that could easily be cured. "What kind of pirate ship are we looking at?" He asked. Amy worked at her controls, trying to get more information from the weak signal. The new Boston says it is a Vorthan raider, probably a Serpent-class attack ship. Fast engines, heavy weapons, and military-grade shields. Lisa Brooks turned from the navigation station. Sir, that ship could destroy us in a straight fight. Our weapons are 30 years old, and their shields are brand new. We should call for backup. Jake thought about Admiral Turner's words. The nearest Federation patrol was 3 days away. By the time help arrived, the new Boston would be nothing but floating wreckage, and the pirates would be long gone. Mr. Lawson, he said into the ship's communication system, are our special. Modifications ready for testing? The chief engineer's voice came back immediately. All systems are working, Captain. We have been wanting to try them out on something other than empty space. Jake smiled. For 3 weeks, his crew had worked day and night to turn their old cargo ship into something unique. They could not make it faster or give it better shields, but they had found other ways to make it dangerous. All hands, this is the captain, Jake announced. We have a civilian ship under attack by pirates. I know we were told to avoid fights, but I will not let innocent people die while we run away. Anyone who wants to object can speak now. The bridge was silent for a moment. Then Danny Foster, the young tactical officer, spoke up. Sir, we did not join the fleet to watch pirates kill civilians. Let's show them what humans can do. The rest of the crew agreed with nods and determined expressions. Jake felt proud of these men and women who were willing to risk their lives for strangers they had never met. The Defiant jumped to faster-than-light speed and headed toward the battle. 1 hour later, they dropped back into normal space and saw the pirate ship attacking the helpless freighter. The Vorthan raider was sleek and deadly, with weapon ports glowing as it prepared to finish off its victim. Incoming transmission from the pirate ship, Amy reported. The main screen flickered and showed the face of a Vorthan captain. His green skin was marked with ritual scars, and his yellow eyes burned with cruel intelligence. I am Captain Krell of the Bloodfang. You will surrender your ship and cargo immediately, or I will destroy you like I destroyed the others. Jake stepped forward so the alien could see him clearly. This is Commander Jake Mitchell of the Federation ship USS Defiant. You will release the civilian vessel and surrender for arrest. Krell laughed, a sound like breaking glass. A human in an old cargo hauler wants to arrest me? I have destroyed Federation patrol ships, twice your size. Prepare to die for your foolishness. The transmission ended, and Krell's ship turned toward the Defiant. Its weapons powered up, and Jake could see the alien captain preparing for what he thought would be an easy kill. Mr. Foster, activate our surprises, Jake ordered. Danny's fingers flew over his controls. Weapon ports opening. All systems show. Green. The Defiant had looked like a harmless cargo ship, but now its true nature was revealed. Hidden panels along the hull slid open to expose weapon tubes that should not have existed. The cargo bays had been converted into missile storage, and Pete Lawson had figured out how to turn mining charges into powerful torpedoes. Fire! Jake commanded. The old ship launched a spread of missiles that caught Krell completely by surprise. His shields absorbed the first impacts, but more weapons were already firing. The Defiant's ancient plasma cannons had been modified to shoot in rapid bursts instead of single shots. Danny had rewired the targeting computers to track multiple targets at once. Krell's ship tried to turn away, but Maria Santos had prepared another surprise. She had hidden small weapon pods in the Defiant's external sensor arrays. These tiny guns could not hurt a warship, but they could confuse its targeting systems and make it hard to aim. Their shields are down to 60%, Danny reported. Our missiles are doing more damage than they expected. The pirate ship fired back with everything it had. Energy beams struck the Defiant's hull and made the whole ship shake. Sparks flew from damaged control panels and the lights flickered. "Hull breach on deck 4, Maria reported, sealing it now. But Jake was not worried. His crew had spent weeks preparing for this moment. Dr. Carter had moved all the important systems away from the outer hull. Amy had created backup communication arrays that the pirates could not find. Pete had built multiple power sources so the ship could keep fighting even with major damage. The battle lasted only 10 minutes, but it changed everything. Krell's advanced warship, designed to prey on helpless merchants, found itself outgunned by a ship he had dismissed as harmless. The Defiant's weapons tore through his shields and hull until his ship exploded in a brilliant flash. "Target destroyed," Danny announced, his voice filled with amazement. "The new Boston is safe." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They had just defeated a pirate ship that should have been able to destroy them easily. But more importantly, they had saved lives and proven that humans could be more than the Federation expected. "Mr. Rodriguez, send a message to the new Boston. Let them know they are safe to continue their journey." As the civilian ship thanked them and jumped to hyperspace, Jake realized that everything had changed. They were no longer the crew of the weakest ship in the fleet. They had become something new, something that the galaxy was not prepared for. The hunt for pirates had just begun. Word spread quickly through the criminal networks of the Outer Rim. Pirates, who had never feared anything, began talking in whispers about a ghost ship that appeared from nowhere and vanished like smoke. They called it the Phantom Ship and Veteran. Raiders who had terrorized the space lanes for decades now refused to take contracts in human patrol zones. Jake Mitchell read the intelligence reports with growing satisfaction. In just 2 months, the USS Defiant had encountered 17 pirate vessels. 15 had been destroyed, and 2 had escaped with tailies that grew more frightening with each telling. The crew had become legends without even trying. "Captain, Amy Rodriguez called from her station. We are receiving multiple distress calls from Convoy 7. They report 12 pirate ships attacking them near the Broken Rocks asteroid field." Jake looked at the tactical display. 12 ships against 1 was impossible odds by any normal calculation. The smart thing to do would be to call for backup and hope some of the civilian vessels survived until help arrived. "How long until Federation reinforcements can reach them?" he asked. 4 hours minimum, Lisa Brooks answered from navigation. "The convoy will be destroyed long before then." Jake studied the star chart showing the asteroid field. It was a maze of floating rocks, some as small as houses and others as large as cities. Most ship captains avoided the area because it was too dangerous to navigate at high speed. "Mr. Foster, what kind of ships are we facing?" Danny Foster worked at his console, analyzing the sensor data from the convoy's transmissions. "Mix of different vessels, sir. Looks like several pirate groups working together. Fast attack ships, a few medium cruisers, and at least 1 heavy destroyer." Maria Santos looked up from her security station. "Sir, that is more firepower than we have ever faced. Our modifications work well against single ships, but 12 pirates working together could overwhelm our defenses." Jake nodded. She was right, of course. In a straight fight, the Defiant would last maybe 5 minutes against that many enemies. But humans had never been known for fighting fair. "Change course for the Broken Rocks. Maximum speed." The crew exchanged glances, but no one questioned the order. They had learned to trust their captain's unusual tactics, even when those tactics seemed like suicide. 30 minutes later, the Defiant dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the asteroid field. The scene before them was chaos. 12 pirate ships circled the civilian convoy like hungry wolves, their weapons tearing apart the merchant vessels one by one. Emergency signals filled the communication channels as crews begged for help that was not coming. "Sir," Amy reported, "the pirates have spotted us. They are breaking off their attack and moving to intercept." "Good," Jake said calmly. "Mr. Lawson, activate our special surprise package." Down in engineering, Pete Lawson's voice came through the ship's speakers. "Holographic projectors are online, Captain. Ready to make some magic." The Defiant suddenly appeared to multiply. Where one ship had been flying toward the asteroid field, now 6 identical vessels moved in perfect formation. The holographic projectors that Dr. Carter had designed created perfect copies of the ship, complete with engine signatures and weapon flashes. The pirate formation wavered as their captains tried to figure out which ships were real. Some opened fire on the false targets, while others hesitated, afraid of wasting ammunition on illusions. "Take us into the asteroids," Jake ordered. "Begin evasive pattern Delta." Kelly Wright, the ship's navigator, guided the Defiant into the maze of floating rocks with skills that amazed even her crewmates. She had spent weeks studying the asteroid field, memorizing the location of every major rock and plotting courses that no sane pilot would attempt. The pirates followed, but their larger ships had trouble keeping up. The Defiant danced between asteroids that would have crushed any vessel that hit them, while the holographic copies seemed to split off and take separate paths through the field. "First target coming into range," Danny announced. "It's a Raider-class attack ship trying to follow us through the rocks. Fire when ready." The Defiant's hidden weapons opened up, catching the pirate completely by surprise. The alien captain had been so focused on avoiding the asteroids that he never saw the missile tubes opening along the human ship's hull. His vessel exploded against a large rock, adding debris to the already dangerous field. 11 ships remaining, Maria reported, but they are getting smarter. 3 of them are trying to box us in. Jake smiled. The pirates thought they were hunting one damaged cargo ship, but they had no idea what they were really facing. Mr. Carter released the drones. From hidden compartments throughout the ship, dozens of small mining drones emerged. Dr. Carter had reprogrammed them with simple artificial intelligence and armed them with small explosive charges. They were not powerful enough to destroy a warship, but they could cause confusion and damage sensors. The drones swarmed toward the nearest pirate ships like angry insects. Some were shot down by defensive weapons, but others got through and attached themselves to enemy hulls. When they exploded, they did not cause serious damage, but they created bright flashes that confused targeting systems. 2 more pirate ships collided with asteroids as their pilots were blinded by the drone explosions. A 3rd vessel, trying to avoid the swarm of small attackers, flew too close to the Defiant's real position and was destroyed by a full spread of modified torpedoes. 8 ships left, Danny reported, but they are regrouping. "I think they figured out that most of our ships are not real." The remaining pirates had indeed learned from watching their companions die. They ignored the holographic copies and focused their attacks on the real Defiant. Energy beams and missiles filled the space around the human ship as 8 different vessels tried to destroy it at once. The Defiant shook under the impacts. Sparks flew from damaged systems, and several crew members were thrown from their stations. But Maria Santos had prepared for this moment too. "Activating hull surprises," she announced. The ship's outer plating suddenly erupted with dozens of small defensive turrets. These hidden weapons could not hurt the pirate ships, but they could shoot down incoming missiles and deflect some of the energy beams. The Defiant had become a floating fortress, bristling with weapons that appeared from nowhere. The battle raged for 20 minutes among the floating rocks. Pirate ships exploded one by one as they discovered that the harmless cargo hauler was actually a nightmare designed to kill anyone who threatened innocent civilians. By the time the last pirate vessel fled in terror, only 3 of the original 12 attackers remained alive, Jake looked around his damaged bridge at his exhausted crew. They had just accomplished something that would be remembered for generations. 12 pirate ships had attacked the convoy, and one human vessel had saved them all. "Sir," Amy said quietly, "we are receiving a transmission from the convoy commander. He wants to know who we are." Jake thought for a moment. The Federation would not be happy about their actions. They had been ordered to avoid major conflicts, not to take on entire pirate fleets. But sometimes doing the right thing meant ignoring orders. "Tell him we are the USS Defiant, and we are just doing our job." As the convoy continued on its way, and the Defiant began repairs, Jake realized that his crew had become something more than Federation officers. They had become the thing that pirates feared in the dark spaces between the stars. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans decided to fight back. Admiral Scott Turner stood in his office on Starbase Alpha, staring at reports that made no sense. The data pad in his hands showed impossible numbers. Pirate attacks in the Outer Rim had dropped by 90% in the past 4 months. Trade routes that had been considered too dangerous for civilian traffic were now safer than the heavily patrolled inner systems, all because of one old cargo ship with a human crew. "This cannot be accurate," he said to his aide, Lieutenant Commander Vextar, a tall Zenthari with 4 golden eyes. "The reports claim that a single Hercules-class vessel has destroyed over 40 pirate ships." Vextar nodded his elongated head. "I have verified the data 3 times, Admiral. The USS Defiant has become the most feared ship in the criminal underworld. Pirates are refusing contracts in human patrol zones. Some have even left the Outer Rim entirely." Turner walked to his window and looked out at the fleet docked around the starbase. Dozens of modern warships floated in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with fresh paint and advanced weapons. Each one cost more than 100 old cargo haulers, and each one was crewed by experienced officers from species that had been fighting in space for centuries. None of them had accomplished what the humans had done with their ancient, broken-down ship. "How is this possible?" Turner asked. "The Defiant has the oldest weapons in the fleet. Her shields are barely strong enough to stop meteors. By every calculation, she should have been destroyed in her first engagement." The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Zethkin of the Hegemony 4th Fleet materialized as a hologram in the center of Turner's office. The alien warriors. Reptilian features were marked with ritual scars, and his 3 eyes burned with barely controlled anger. "Admiral Turner," the Hegemony captain said without greeting, "we need to discuss the human problem that is developing in your territory." Turner felt his stomach drop. The Hegemony was a military alliance of 3 species that controlled much of the galactic core. They were not part of the Federation, and their ships were designed for conquest rather than peacekeeping. If they were taking interest in human activities, it meant serious trouble. "Captain Zethkan," Turner replied carefully, "I am not sure what problem you are referring to. The humans are simply conducting routine patrol duties as assigned." The Hegemony captain's laugh was like the sound of grinding metal. "Routine patrols do not result in the complete destruction of criminal organizations that have operated successfully for decades. Your humans have upset the balance of power in this region." Vextar stepped forward. "Sir, with respect, the Hegemony has no authority in Federation space. Our internal security matters are not your concern." Zethkan's 3 eyes focused on the Zenthari officer. "Everything becomes our concern when it threatens regional stability. The humans were supposed to remain weak and dependent on other Federation species for protection. Instead, they have developed military capabilities that exceed their authorized limits." Turner tried to keep his voice steady. "The USS Defiant is operating within all Federation guidelines. They have committed no violations of interstellar law." "Perhaps not," Zethkin agreed, "but they have demonstrated that humans are more dangerous than anyone realized." Species that become too powerful too quickly often destabilize entire sectors. The hegemony has a responsibility to prevent such disruptions. The hologram flickered as the alien captain leaned forward. We have been monitoring your human ship for weeks. Their tactics are unlike anything we have seen before. They do not fight like civilized species with established military doctrines. They fight like wild animals, using chaos and unpredictability as weapons. Turner had read the battle reports from the Defiant. He knew exactly what Zefcan meant. Where other species relied on superior technology and overwhelming firepower, humans seemed to thrive on turning disadvantages into advantages. They used old equipment in new ways, created weapons from mining tools, and developed tactics that made no sense according to established military theory. Yet somehow, their approach worked better than anything the Federation had tried. What do you want from us? Turner asked. Zefkin smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. We want you to understand that the galaxy is watching. The humans have attracted attention from powers that do not appreciate surprises. If they continue to exceed expectations, they may find themselves facing challenges that their clever tricks cannot overcome. The transmission ended, leaving Turner and Vexstar alone in the office. The Admiral sat down heavily in his chair and rubbed his temples. Sir, Vexstar said quietly, I believe the hegemony is planning to test the humans directly. They will not be satisfied with second-hand reports about the Defiant's capabilities. Turner nodded. He had reached the same conclusion. The hegemony had built their reputation on demonstrating that upstart species needed to know their place in the galactic order. They would not allow humans to continue operating without proving their superiority. Meanwhile, 300 light years away, Jake Mitchell was dealing with problems of his own. The Defiant had returned to the Broken Rocks asteroid field for routine maintenance when Amy Rodriguez picked up something unusual on the long-range sensors. Captain, she called from her station, I am detecting energy signatures that do not match any known pirate vessels. The patterns suggest military-grade ships with advanced cloaking technology. Jake studied the sensor display. Whatever was out there was trying very hard not to be detected. Only Amy's modifications to their sensor array had picked up the faint traces. How many ships? He asked. At least 4, possibly more. They are maintaining position just outside the asteroid field, like they are watching us. Lisa Brooks looked up from navigation. Sir, those energy patterns match hegemony warship designs. If they are here, it means we have attracted the wrong kind of attention. Jake had heard of the hegemony from intelligence briefings. They were known for testing new species that showed signs of becoming too powerful too quickly. Their method was simple. Challenge the upstarts to single combat and prove that experience and superior technology would always defeat cleverness and determination. Mr. Lawson, Jake called over the communication system. How are our special modifications holding up? Pete Lawson's voice came back immediately. All systems are running better than ever, Captain. We have some new surprises that we have been wanting to test. Good, Jake said, because I think we are about to get the biggest test of our careers. Danny Foster turned from his tactical station. Sir, if the hegemony is here to fight us, they will not come alone. They will bring enough firepower to make sure they win. Probably, Jake agreed. But they have made one mistake. What mistake is that, sir? Jake smiled as he looked around the bridge at his crew. These men and women had transformed a broken cargo ship into the most feared vessel in the Outer Rim. They had defeated pirates who should have destroyed them easily. They had proven that humans could do the impossible when they worked together. They think this is still the same old cargo hauler they gave us 6 months ago, Jake said. They have no idea what we have really built. Maria Santos checked her weapon systems and grinned. Sir, I think they are about to find out. The USS Defiant continued its patrol through the asteroid field, but now the crew was preparing for something much more dangerous than pirates. The hegemony was coming, and they wanted to prove that humans were still the weakest species in the galaxy. They were about to discover just how wrong they could be. The trap was perfect in its simplicity. A fake distress signal from a research vessel claimed to be stranded deep in the asteroid field. The location was isolated, far from any Federation patrol routes, and surrounded by floating rocks that would hide the attacking ships until it was too late. Captain Zethgen of the Hegemony 4th Fleet watched from the bridge of his flagship as his task force moved into position. 3 heavy cruisers and his own battleship represented enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Against one outdated cargo hauler, it should be no contest at all. All ships report ready, his tactical officer announced. The human vessel is approaching the bait signal. Zethkan studied the tactical display with satisfaction. Each of his ships was crewed by warriors from species that had conquered star systems, while humans were still learning to make fire. Their weapons could punch through the strongest shields, and their armor could withstand attacks that would vaporize lesser vessels. Today, the galaxy would learn what happened to upstart species that forgot their place. On the USS Defiant, Jake Mitchell sat in his command chair and watched the sensor readings with growing certainty. The distress signal was too clean, the energy patterns too regular. Someone wanted them to come to this exact location, and he had a good idea who that someone was. Captain, Amy Rodriguez called from communications. I am detecting multiple power signatures hidden among the asteroids. The cloaking is good, but not perfect. How many ships? Jake asked, though he already suspected the answer. 4 large vessels, sir. Battleship class or bigger. This is definitely hegemony. Lisa Brooks turned from navigation with worry in her eyes. Sir, a hegemony battleship carries more weapons than our entire patrol fleet. We cannot fight that kind of firepower. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had followed him through impossible battles and won victories that should have been defeats. They had proven that humans could adapt and overcome any challenge. But this was different. This was not clever tactics against pirates, but raw power that could turn their ship into vapor. All hands, this is the captain, Jake announced over the ship's communication system. We all knew this day would come. The galaxy wants to test whether humans deserve our place among the stars. Today we show them exactly what kind of nightmare they have awakened. The crew responded with grim determination. Pete Lawson activated modifications that had been kept secret even from Federation Command. Dr. Carter prepared his most dangerous creations. Maria Santos armed every hidden weapon and defensive system they had built. Incoming transmission, Amy reported. The main screen flickered to show Captain Zethkan's reptilian features. His 3 eyes burned with predatory hunger as he studied the human bridge crew. I am Captain Zethkan of the Hegemony 4th Fleet, he said in perfect Federation standard. You have been chosen to demonstrate the proper relationship between experienced species and newcomers who reach too far above their station. Jake stood and faced the alien commander. This is Commander Jake Mitchell of the Federation vessel USS Defiant. You are in violation of the Neutral Zone Treaty by bringing warships into this sector. Zethkan laughed, a sound like breaking stone. Treaties apply to equals, human. Today you will learn the difference between luck and true military power. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Counteroffer, Jake replied calmly. Leave our space now, and we will not add your ships to our kill count. The hegemony captain's eyes widened with surprise, then narrowed with rage. No species had ever spoken to him with such disrespect. You dare threaten the hegemony with one broken cargo ship? I will personally watch as your hull breaks apart under my guns. The transmission ended and Zethkan's task force dropped their cloaking devices. 4 massive warships emerged from behind the asteroids like hungry predators. Their hulls were black metal covered with weapon ports, and their shields glowed with barely contained energy. "All ships, attack formation," Zethkan commanded. "Destroy." Them. The hegemony vessels opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams thick as tree trunks lashed out toward the Defiant, while missiles streaked through space like deadly stars. It was enough firepower to level a city, all focused on one small human ship dot, but the Defiant was no longer the cargo hauler it had once been. Jake's crew had spent months preparing for this moment. The ship seemed to multiply as holographic projectors, created dozens of false targets. The real vessel vanished among its own illusions, while the enemy weapons struck empty space. Now, Jake ordered the asteroids around the hegemony ships suddenly came alive. What Zethkan had thought were floating rocks were actually camouflaged weapon platforms that Pete Lawson had built and hidden throughout the field. Mining drones by the hundreds swarmed from their hiding places, each one armed with explosives and guided by simple artificial intelligence. "Impossible," Zethkan snarled as his flagship shook under multiple impacts. How did they hide so many weapons? The answer was simple human ingenuity. While the hegemony had focused on building bigger ships with more powerful guns, humans had learned to use the environment itself as a weapon. Every asteroid in the field had been turned into a potential threat. Every piece of space debris converted into a missile. The battle became chaos as the hegemony ships found themselves fighting an entire asteroid field that had turned hostile. Their sensors could not track the real Defiant among all the false targets and exploding rocks. Their weapons, designed to destroy other warships, were useless against thousands of small drones that attacked from every direction. "Sir," the hegemony tactical officer reported, "we have lost 2 cruisers. The third is heavily damaged. Our shields are down to 30%. Zethkan stared at his displays in disbelief. His task force, which could have conquered a small planet, was being destroyed by mining equipment and holographic tricks. The humans had not tried to match his firepower. Instead, they had changed the rules of engagement entirely. "All ships, retreat to safe distance," he ordered reluctantly. But Jake was not finished. As the hegemony vessels tried to withdraw, the real Defiant appeared directly behind Zethkan's flagship. The cargo bays opened to reveal the ship's true purpose. It had become a mobile weapons platform, carrying enough firepower to cripple a battleship. "This is for everyone who thought humans were weak," Jake said quietly. The Defiant fired everything it had: modified torpedoes, converted mining charges, and experimental weapons that Dr. Carter had designed, all struck Zethkan's ship at point-blank range. The battleship's shields collapsed, and its hull began to break apart, in his final moments. Zethkan understood what had happened. The humans had not simply modified an old cargo ship. They had created something entirely new, a vessel that could turn any weakness into a strength and use the enemy's own assumptions against them. His last transmission, broadcast on all hegemony frequencies, would change how the galaxy viewed humanity forever. They are not like other species. They do not fight as we fight. They turned our strength against us and made our weapons useless. Beware the humans. They have become something we never expected. The explosion of Zethkan's flagship lit up the asteroid field like a new star. When the light faded, only one hegemony cruiser remained, fleeing toward deep space with news of humanity's victory. Jake looked around his damaged bridge at his exhausted crew. They had just defeated a force that should have destroyed them easily. More importantly, they had proven that humans belonged among the stars not as the weakest species, but as equals to anyone. "Set course for home," he ordered. "I think it is time the Federation learned what we have really built." The USS Defiant, no longer the weakest ship in the fleet, began its journey back to Starbase Alpha. Behind them, the asteroid field was quiet, except for the floating wreckage of ships that had learned too late what happened when the galaxy underestimated human determination. The age of human expansion had begun, and it would be unlike anything the stars had ever seen.